Hello everyone, welcome back to the Zach F1 channel, and this is my video of my F1 fantasy thoughts ahead of qualifying after FP1 and FP2. So this video is specifically for anyone who wants my final thoughts and can't make it to the live stream tomorrow, or they're just too busy, or they've got, just life going on tomorrow. As usual, this will be a very quick video, but I'm just going to go from point to point as quickly as possible. But anyway, let's get started. So first up, let's talk about the big talking points, which of course are the constructors and who you need to bring in. Now, in my initial video of F1 Fantasy, I mentioned that Mercedes and Ferrari most likely will be battling it out for that second place in the constructors, so around third or fourth. However, we've seen in FP1 and FP2 that they are very close to McLaren, if not faster than them. So it has gone from me saying Ferrari, Mercedes, doesn't really matter which one you have, to have Ferrari in your team. The only two constructors you should really even be looking at, if you want to be taken seriously points-wise, not budget, points-wise, are Ferrari and McLaren. So you need to have Ferrari and McLaren in your team. However, talking about constructors, if you want a differential constructor, is definitely a weekend to go for VCarb, as they are very cheap if you need a bit more budget, or you want to try out a triple premium driver build, or anything crazy like that, I'd go with VCarb. Now, for 2x driver, my bet is still on Lando Norris. He's looked very good this weekend, and I do expect him to put it on pole and win the race. It's going to be close, but I think Charles Leclerc will finish in second place. Then for your second premium driver, or your second choice after Lando Norris, it has to be Charles Leclerc, then followed by Carlos Sainz as the third best, and then Oscar Piastri. He hasn't really done anything fantastic this side of the weekend so far. However, in that McLaren, we know he will still do well. But it looks like it's just one of those tracks that Piastri is just going to struggle with. And if that's the case, Piastri as a top premium driver now, over 25 million, isn't worth it. Considering most teams, you need to pick one of those 25+ million drivers and then go for someone else. A few teams will bring in both. Then moving down to the cheaper drivers, of course, my top three drivers have completely changed going into this weekend now. The Hasses are completely off the cards right now. K-Mag still looks like a decent option because he's always a decent option. He'll always do well in F1 Fantasy. However, both VCarbs have gone from sell them to buy them in. I don't know where this pace has come from, but VCarbs look very dangerous. So if you have enough money, or you're going for a single premium driver build, I'd expect to see Ricciardo and Tsunoda in that team. Followed up by Alex Albon. Honorable mention again to Colapinto. He's not running those Williams upgrades, but Albon with those upgrades should still get into the top 10. So I really do think it's VCarbs and Albon that are the top three cheap drivers you really want to bring into your team. Then Zhou versus Bottas. I would have Bottas over Zhou purely because he's cheaper. However, both of them are pretty dud drivers. And then the rest of them, it's like a roulette wheel, like I mentioned, with Gasly, Stroll, Ocon, Hulkenberg, even K-Mag to an extent. We don't really know where they're going to be, so be very careful when you use them. I need to mention Red Bull, as they look severely off the pace. They were off the pace last year. They've been off the pace in practice too, with Perez only 8th and Verstappen only managing 15th. Of course, they will do better than that, I'm sure. But it's not looking like a very good weekend for Red Bull. So even those fastest pit stop points potentially from Red Bull, they get more often than not, they're not going to save them. So Red Bull completely off the cards. Do not bring them in as a constructor. Even Mercedes, a bit of a push now. So I would 100% steer clear of Mercedes and Red Bull. And like I mentioned, bring in McLaren and Ferrari. So let's go on to the team selections. And if you can afford to have Norris and Leclerc, that is the way you want to go. Then if you can fit in both VCarbs and Colapinto, I'd go with that with Ferrari and McLaren. I'll show that team right now. However, like usual, you can do the same sorts of things where if you can't afford the VCarbs, you could drop Ricciardo down to an Albon, and then a Tsunoda down to a Zhou or a Bottas just to get a little bit more money into your team. And then again, if you can't afford Norris and Leclerc like myself, the next best option, I believe, is Lando Norris as your 2x driver. Both teams have Lando Norris as your 2x driver. Then with Carlos Sainz as your second premium driver, with the exact same process for your cheaper drivers as well and the constructors. Again, you can change them around. I'll show exactly what teams you can bring in as well. And then, of course, you can have triple McLaren, but I just really don't like the look of Piastri at the minute, so I'd sort of steer clear until FP3 potentially to see what else he can do. And then chips wise, I still don't think there's any use for them right now. Of course, it's Singapore, it could start raining. If it is raining, no negative potentially, but I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. And again, say it with me, if it's not a sprint race weekend, don't use your chips. As yes, on the surface, it looks like a good weekend to use autopilot, as you never know who's going to get more points, Norris or Leclerc realistically. However, the same thing's going to be applied for a sprint race weekend, most likely, and then there's going to be even more points on the cards. If you screw up that, it's going to be worse than if you screw up now. So you've got to think long term about this. But anyway, those are all the updates for FP1 and FP2. Like I mentioned, McLaren Ferrari look good, V-Carbs look good, Albon and Colapinto look good, and if you have to bring in a few Sauber drivers, then you have to as dud drivers. But that is basically the gist of it. So anyway, I hope this quick little video helps all of you out. I hope I see most of you in my live stream tomorrow. I'll be live streaming an hour and a half before qualifying, which I believe is 11:30 British summer time. However, I'll see you all over there. I hope you could take something out from this video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.